Welcome to the Intriguing Beings podcast with me, Ruchater. Season 3, Episode 3 with Ralf Grösel. Welcome back. It's been a little while. Apologies for the break. Obviously, there was a worldwide pandemic happening and I needed to prioritise a few things. I have released a couple of episodes since that all started. If you haven't listened to them, go back and check them. And I was actually looking at the back catalogue the other day, and there's a wealth of great podcasts. So if this is your first experience listening to Intriguing Beings, then I do recommend you go and check them out on all your usual podcast providers. They are worth a listen, and there's plenty of great content back there. I was asked by Ralf to go and visit him at his new factory in North Macedonia, and I don't want to talk too much about this during the intro because we're going to discuss that for the next hour or so. But that's what really sort of inspired me to get back to doing another episode. It's been a little while since I did the last one, and as you know, I like doing these in person, so getting to actually go to North Macedonia and sit down with Ralf provided the perfect opportunity to actually record a podcast face to face. I've got a couple more lined up, so it won't be such a long wait before the next episode. So keep your eye out on these podcasts. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. If you do enjoy these episodes, please remember to like and share. Give them a 5-star review wherever you can. Tell your friends about them and just get the word out there, because the more people that listen, obviously, the more inspiring it is for the person doing them, namely me, and I will make more of them. Also, I want to give a shout out to Liam and Freddie over at the Generic Foiling Pod. They're a little bit of the inspiration behind me getting back into this, along with the invitation from Ralf. Those boys set up a foiling podcast a little while ago, covers all sorts of things across all sports. So just anything foiling, whether it's kite foiling, prone foiling, sup foiling, winging, e-foiling, whatever it is, they have a good chat about it. And I was in Ireland with them about a month or so ago, and we were chatting about podcasts, and they said how this had been an inspiration for them, which was a really kind thing for them to say. I then listened to all their episodes on the way home and absolutely loved them, and we're going to be doing a little bit of work together moving forwards anyway, so that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing their pod, but also just because it is a really good podcast, and it's not often I say that. So if you've got 5 minutes spare, go and check out the Generic Foiling Pod, and if you like the content, subscribe and have a good listen to those guys as well. Anyway, I'm not going to waffle on too much. We're going to dive straight in with this next episode. It was a fantastic experience to go out to North Macedonia. I'd never been before, had no clue where it was. Needed to look it up on Google and really didn't know what to expect. And I just want to say thank you to Ralf and Isabel at Brainchild Production for giving me the most amazing 48 hours in North Macedonia. Let's jump into the podcast right now. Here we go. It's been a while since I've recorded one of these, and COVID obviously meant I couldn't sit down with people and see them in the flesh, which is how I always like to record these interviews. Obviously, COVID's passed, and actually in the last 3 months, the travel has really opened up, and I've been traveling around a lot more. And Ralf, we've had on the podcast before when we were in South Africa a little while back. If you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend you go and do, because it will give you a really good insight into who Ralf is and the sort of things that he does. He's an exceedingly talented man, paraglider, kiteboarder, kite designer, kite tester, racing car driver. He's done all sorts of amazing things. He also runs a mind-blowing number of companies. I actually flew out to North Macedonia yesterday to hang out with Ralf and Isabel, his partner, for a few days and check out his latest project. And we were chatting last night, and I was just blown away by what a high-functioning human Ralf is. And that's probably a good way to describe him. Anyway, with a very brief intro, Ralf, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. It's an absolute pleasure. It's nice to see you again. So we've come out here to look at your latest project, which is called Brainchild.
Yeah.
And if people haven't heard of it, it's on Instagram. There's a bit of social media buzz out there. This podcast is probably the first major bit of news you'll get from it from our news outlets, but we'll be doing an article on it. We're also putting a little video together as well. And when Ralf initially told me about this, it really piqued my interest, because there's a really important aspect to it, which I think everyone will be interested in. And there's also some different angles that we talked about yesterday about how Brainchild is going to operate. So, Ralf, in a few words, would you like to say what Brainchild is?
Well, I'll try to do it in a few words.
And then we can talk endlessly about it. But just to sort of sum up an overview,
in a nutshell. Well, basically, Brainchild, it's all about a sustainable production facility in the heart of Europe. I mean, as you mentioned, we are here in North Macedonia, a very tiny little country close to the Greek border. Like we are 4 kilometers away from the border. And Brainchild is, on one side, we are really focusing on changing the industry, the wind-driven industry, to something which is sustainable for real on one hand, but also pushing production, manufacturing techniques to the next level. I think this is basically the combination between high tech and doing everything what is humanly possible to make the products more eco-friendly, more sustainable. As I always say, I'm not going to heal the world, but I really do try to make it better, as good as ever possible.
And the water sports industry traditionally isn't a very sustainable industry. They're using resins in boards and materials for kites and things like that. And you've obviously been working in factories for a long time. How bad is it as a current state, do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, we have to say wind-driven sports are fantastic generally because they're wind-driven. So the energy comes from the energy source is the wind itself. And I think this is a very positive effect to our sport in general. But like the production facilities are all in Asia. The core markets are in Europe mainly and in the States. So you are shifting and flying materials from A to B in a pretty crazy way. So if you look to the CO2 footprint we are creating, it's actually quite bad. And we had a discussion yesterday. It is our mission is not to compensate CO2. We are not going to purchase any certificates which are very questionable, I would say, in general. But we really try to change the supply chain, for example. We really try to source everything what we can in Europe, even here in this little town in Bitola. And it is a huge mission, huge. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, complicated, complex, because of the sum of items we do need for the product. We have so many different materials from different sources, and it's a long-term project, definitely, to change something. It's not going that I had the idea and I'm change the industry by tomorrow, but somehow you have to start on a certain point. And this is what we do. And as you said, it's not only the material, but it's also the manufacturing technique itself. For example, printing. All the kites out there are screen printed, and screen printing ink is everything but environmentally friendly. It's just not. So you will not find screen printing in our facilities. You will never find it. We have come up with a completely different technology of eco-solvent digital printing, which is ecologically friendly on one side, but is also going to change the optical impression, the look and feel of our products forever.
I mean, chatting to you yesterday, it's very apparent that Brainchild is like a whole project approach. We've mentioned the digital printing there and the eco inks, but let's bring it back. So when you rock up to the laboratory, as you've called it, which is the first part of the project, and it's worth mentioning that Ralf is busy creating a much bigger production facility here in Macedonia, and this is like the first sort of iteration of it, where he's working on the techniques that are going to transfer across to the larger production facility. And you rock up and you see Brainchild, and Macedonia, I've never been here before. You're probably Googling where North Macedonia is, which is exactly what I did when Ralf invited me. I was like, where on earth am I going?
I did it as well.
And then
8 years ago.
the taxi driver drove me, and it's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful country, but you're driving around some of the industrial areas and it does look, a little run down and sort of Eastern European and what you might expect. But when you arrive at Brainchild, it's this beautifully painted, smart looking warehouse with a lovely logo on it, and you walk through the doors And probably a good place to start would be with the roof.
Yeah.
And that was where we started the factory tour. Obviously, didn't go up on the roof, but you showed me, how you're powering the building, which people can probably guess. But let's talk a little bit about that, because it's probably the starting point of where the energy comes in to run the facility, and how important that is.
Yeah, it's super important. Like, we are 100% running on solar power. This is like essential, I would say. Like, generally, it's essential. Whenever you have an investment coming up, I think everybody is taking solar power into consideration, has to take it into consideration. And for us, it is just like a 100% logic step to be independent on one side, but also not to use the power from the grid, because the power from the grid is basically from a very old factory or energy plant, how you call it, running on coke. So no, I mean, it is like a lot of different steps you have to do. Like, we are not using any plastic to pack our finished products or wrap our finished products into. We are using mainly cotton. Cotton coming from Turkey, but manufactured in North Macedonia. We're using recycled yarn from Germany, from Aman, which is the highest grade of recycled yarn you can have. And it's just everything, like when you look at the backpack, for example. The backpack is made from out of 97% ecologically friendly or sustainable materials. We have no plastic buckles. We have wood buckles. The wood is coming from Serbia, the neighboring country. They are milled, CNC milled in our facility, and we're trying to we're not trying. We have reinvented pretty much every single aspect of the manufacturing in our field of the sport. This is what we do. Like, it's questioning everything, every single seam, every material. I'm talking to all the suppliers. We are trying to, kind of reinventing every little bit, because it's just like our products are fantastic products, and they are there to deliver joy to the people. Like, this is like, it's a fun sport, so it must be a fun product. And my vision is to make it not only fun, but also sustainable.
And one of the sort of we'll sort of walk our way through the production facility, I guess, and give you a kind of, if you're listening in, an audio tour of what Ralf has created. And we started off with the solar panels, which, as Ralf said, is a no-brainer. It's it's something where I think we discussed it a bit yesterday, but all businesses should be looking, when they start up now, to be sustainable. There's no point not doing it, because we're in a climate crisis and the planet is dying, and if we're still just going down the old ways, there's no point at all. So starting with the solar, obviously a no-brainer, and it's quite an impressive solar setup that Ralf's got. It's not just your average a few panels. The whole roof is absolutely covered, and they do bring in an awful lot of energy. But then probably one of the most startling things was the material that you bring in is all white. And there's a reason for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is
what's, you were telling me about the way that the yarn is dyed and stuff, if you have different coloured materials. And just to give you an idea, when you think about the kites that we buy today, or the wings that we buy today, all those panels are individually coloured. Like, you buy a sheet of Tasian material in blue or green or whatever colour it is, and then it's stitched together to make the design, whereas you've completely turned that on its head and you only bring in white materials.
Yeah, Ru, the crazy thing about our industry is that once you're connected to the suppliers, to the material suppliers, and once you have like a proper business relationship or general relationship, then you're starting to chat. Of course you have to talk about good materials, bad materials in terms of ecologically friendly materials. And as we are aiming for this, the first question for me was like, how much more, because I know that the dyeing process of a single yarn, whatever, red, blue, gray, doesn't matter, requires quite a lot of additional water in comparison to plain white material. And the ratio is around 1 to 4, sometimes even 5. So that means if you have a very colorful kite, then you already used up 4 to 5 times more water in the process of dyeing the yarn.
Just to make the material.
Just to make the material.
That's before you've stitched anything,
Exactly.
before you've cut any material. Just to do that, you've used way more water.
And that's insane amount of water. And I cannot mention any names, but I had a long chat with the chief engineer from a very big material supplier, like a material supplier everyone is using in the industry. And he was telling me, he said like, hey Ralf, if I would love to talk to the magazines and tell them how bad it is actually what we have to do if we dye the yarn. And because I introduced the digital printing to him, and it's not that easy to make it happen, and we have to develop the materials in a bit different way. And he said like, man, this is just the way to go. And really they are actually happy to have a partner now in this regard, Brainchild, which is trying to set new standards for the industry. And we basically, we don't cut the panels. We only have white materials, like absolutely 100% white materials, and we are printing on them with eco-solvent digital printing. And there are like two effects on it. Like eco-solvent print is pretty much the same ink you're having on your bed sheet. If you have a colored bed sheet, for example, it's the same type of ink, and it's just like a little amount. Like this is just, it's a completely different idea. Like not the yarn is basically printed on the surface, but still you have a completely different effect. Also, you have a like a shine through effect. So the logos and the graphics are visible from both sides. And this is also a huge benefit in comparison to the screen printing, where you normally just see the screen printing on one side, and on the other side it is just gray.
Yeah.
And with the digital printing, you basically have both sides of the kite or of the wing, which is like an advertising display, sort of.
And the printer you've got, I mean, I'm jumping one stage ahead, because the next stage is the material come in, and it's all white, which is shocking when you first see it. But then when you hear Ralf talk about it, you're like, well, that makes sense. And then you actually scan every piece of material and roll it off the roll and onto another roll and check it for, defects. And there's a sustainable reason why you do that, because obviously you don't want to get to the end of the production line and find the material's got a defect in it. So
yes, exactly. I mean, everything starts with the quality control up front, and we do have very expensive materials. That's also a little bit of the difference. Recycled materials in general are much more expensive than virgin materials, at least these days. And this is another thing we maybe can talk later about, like the vision I have behind Brainchild and how I want to push the entire industry, also in this regard. But the material itself has to be checked every single centimeter. Literally, we have a roll-to-roll table, like a light table, it's also called. And if we would not do this, then we would have to waste the material. And if you want to be sustainable, don't waste. Try to avoid wasting materials, because it's a resource. In every single regard, it's a resource, money-wise, but of course also there's no need to throw them away. Generally. And this is basically, it starts with the white, it goes through the digital printing process, then it goes to the cutting.
And the digital printer you've got is immense, like it's huge. And I mean, it's worth probably talking about that, because I know from, if you work in the clothing industry, a digital t-shirt printed, yes, you can have more colours, but generally the colours don't look as good as a screen print. But the printing that Ralf was showing me yesterday was insane, like absolutely insane. It's nuts. The quality of the DPI, the quality of the colours is just bonkers. Is that a fairly new advancement in digital printing, or is it something that's been around but it's expensive so people didn't want to use it? What's the sort of...
The thing is that digital printing in general is ultra complex. It's not complex, it's ultra complex because of the variations you're having. Like depends on what kind of digital printing you're aiming for, but the combination of ink, amount of ink, settings, color settings, sometimes the transfer paper, if you go for transfer sublimation printing, or the amount of heat you have to put in, to make the transfer happening. These are all variables which are extremely complicated, and I've been working on digital printing for many years now for the company I own, or I owned Jibe inflatable tents, and we do since 11 years, 10 years, customized tents very successfully. We're market leader in that field, and all these products are actually digital printed. But the main difference between that company and what we do at the moment is that for Jibe we have been using one fabric, so one setting basically, and now we're using a huge number of different materials for the inflatable part, for the canopy, for the accessories, and it was a huge journey, and it took us 6 months basically to really figure it out, and really not hundreds but thousands of tests with 3 people involved for 6 months to come to the level where we say, okay, it actually looks like a photorealistic printing. And I think, as you mentioned, it is, I think it's pretty crazy actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will revolutionize the water sports industry and how the water sports industry looks, because up to this date it's been defined by, I mean, at the moment everybody knows there's a material shortage, and brands can't say, oh, we're going to make black kites next year because there might not be any black material, so suddenly they're having to make kites in whatever material is available, and especially for some of the smaller brands that perhaps haven't bought in as much bulk and don't have as much sway with the material provider, it's become a real issue. But by using white materials and digitally printing on them, I mean, the possibilities are infinite almost. Yeah. There's no limit to what you can do in terms of the graphics, the colours, and it's not like you're going to run out of the red material, because you can just make an infinite amount of it. And you were saying as well that even the ink is not expensive, like it doesn't cost very much in terms of, I don't know how much you want to say, but it's not like, even though they're doing like full colour printing across an entire wing, it's, you'd think, maybe that would cost $50 or something like that. But actually the cost of it and the eco footprint isn't that bad at all. Yeah,
the eco footprint is actually quite good, because even if you're using sublimation paper, it is the same as a newspaper and you can recycle it by 100%. So there's really, the footprint itself is really good, really, really good. And as we are creating our own energy, and this is the main source, like production runs with energy. This is something you always have to keep in mind. If you want to put things together, you need an electric motor, an engine which runs on electricity. So as long as you have covered this field, then pretty much you're quite safe when it comes to carbon footprint in general. We are setting new standards. Yeah, I think that's it. Like, we're setting new standards, and I think this idea is going to be copied sooner or later from every other manufacturing brand in the field of not even wind-driven sport. I think it will also influence other industries, and that's very positive. You know me now a little bit, and you know that I'm very competitive, and I know that I'm going to change the industry. I will start a race. Yeah. Because this is what it's all about. It's going to be like, I've invented a new method, and now the race is on, and I'm totally motivated to race. Yeah. Because it's for the good. Like it's great. Like if I have the chance to influence an entire industry, even I will have more headaches in the future to race other companies, I'm still absolutely 100% motivated to do so, because we have the chance to kind of also educate a little bit the kiters, the user, to say or to showcase how much effort we have to put in to make things better. I think this is one of the reasons. I'm also super glad and happy that we have this chat and I'm able to basically talk about that project, because it's so much more than just buying a certificate and telling that I have compensated CO2. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit yesterday, didn't we? So I mean, we'll get onto a bit more of the production process in a second, but I think we've hit that point so we can labour it. One of the things I said to Ralf yesterday that really annoys me is companies that say, sustainability is a journey, because we're not there yet, but we're working towards it. And you're like, okay, well, when? 2030? Well, that's not really good enough. You're not, it's going to be a messed up world that we live in by then if temperatures keep rising.
And really what Ralf is trying to do is to be as sustainable as possible right now to a level which I've never seen before in the industry. I've not even seen the industry attempt to do it. I can't think of anyone that's looked at every little detail and tried to think how they can make that more sustainable. But yeah, it's quite an incredible achievement to have built what you've built in such a short space of time. Was it 13 months or something you've been?
Yeah, when we are talking about the hole itself, yeah, it was basically only 13 months, and we put quite a lot of effort into it. But you know, like everything is based on my 26 years of experience in the field of paragliding and kite surfing and industrial engineering. And I mean, I have been involved in setting up production facilities in China, in Ukraine, in Sri Lanka. I've been in Sri Lanka for 10 years, like setting up the biggest facilities in our field worldwide. So I think this is kind of my core competence.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that I'm the kite designer for Duoton, and I guess most of the people do know the products I'm involved to, like whatever, Evo or other models which are existing from Duoton. But the thing is, small example, you know, like we will always feature plastic parts on a kite, on a wing. Because plastic itself is not a bad material at all whatsoever. Plastic is fantastic. It's just the way we're dealing with it. And it starts with the entire supply chain. So we developed a new modular system for all the plastic bits and pieces, for all the plastic parts, starting with the valve discs, the clips, inflation valve, dump valve, handles, this, whatever, everything you see on the kite, we reinvented. The mold, which is like the aluminium block for the injection molding part, is made 2.5 kilometers away from our production facility. It's coming from Austria, like the raw material, but it's manufactured basically here. And the injection molding is taking place 25 kilometers away from us in a company which is owned by Germans working for the automotive industry. And this is just a level where you have on one side the best quality you can look for. The supply chain is extremely short. Like you can't get it even shorter. Like I try to make it even shorter in the future, but it is the shortest thing you can do. And then I have the chance, because I'm talking to very high level, skilled, motivated companies, we are able to find new ways for using recycled materials on one side. So our clips, which are made of PA6, for example, or PA12, are 100% from recycled material. And I know because I have seen the process of recycling. So in this regard, in terms of the industry telling you that everything is recycled, I personally do not trust anybody. You know, because it is so easy to get a certificate, to get like a sticker on saying it's recycled. So I don't trust anyone, and my vision, my goal is ultimately to find enough partners which are going to change the industry like bit by bit. Our next mission is, besides building the manufacturing side, is to have our own recycling plant. I have talked to the government a couple of times, and the goal is to get PET bottles recycled, crashed, and then you basically, of course, with the crashed material, you do the fiber, and then you go to the weaving looms, and then you create your own material, which is maybe not 100% white, you know, but due to the fact that we have digital printing, then we are just like closing the loop, you know, like, and I feel it is so fascinating, and this is really, really my personal goal, to be the first in the industry which can prove 100% prove that your backpack was a bottle maybe 3 days ago. And you know, and really, and everybody can come and visit me and can have a proof of what I'm actually doing. So this is the real vision. And it's a big achievement. It's funny that no one really tried to do this, because technically it is possible, but maybe it is necessary to have such a lifestyle-driven sport. And I really do hope that I'm also able to to explain my vision to as many people as ever possible, so that I'm able to find the one or the other guy which is going to join my journey.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you say, when we talk about plastic on a kite, a lot of people would not think there's any plastic on a kite because it's made of material. It's not, but actually when you think about all the little clips and you know, all the little things to close each strut off on the bladder tubes, and the same on the wings and the valve and stuff, there is quite a lot of plastic. And you know, we chatted a lot about materials yesterday, and why is it that all kite brands don't just use recycled plastic? Because that's a really easy win to do that, and it's something that you're championing. But you know, these brands, and a lot of them do claim to be sustainable. You know, some claim the sustainability more than others. I wouldn't say any of them have claimed to be totally sustainable. You know, no one's been that bold, but some of them are offsetting things and things like that. Surely using recycled plastic as an industry is an easy win, or is it hard to do?
No. But the funny thing is, Ru, that the grade of complexity is just too big, you know. And we had a chat now, as we said yesterday, about why the things are so weird at the moment, like why the world is so weird, why the politicians are nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah? Nuts, you know, like close to mentally disabled, as I would describe it. And because of the grade of complexity, it is so difficult to understand how a product is made. It is sometimes even not possible to understand the supply chain. And this is it, you know, like I really, whatever I do, whatever I touched, whatever I did in my career, I really want to get to the source of the problem. And I'm like, something inside me drives me to the point that I have to solve a problem once I have realized that there is a problem. And you need a lot of effort, and you need a lot of knowledge. Sorry. Wow. Of knowledge and network.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always talking about the magic triangle in the future to create the product of the future. And the triangle contains the designer, the material supplier, and the manufacturing techniques, or the manufacturer. And you have to close this magic triangle to invent. And if you're not able to do this, if you just copy, if you just go to a manufacturing side and say like, okay, this is my kite design file, make something out of it, then you don't understand what is actually behind it. You just see a split of the picture, a split of the truth, basically, of the complexity behind. And as I have been involved since really 26 years in the entire circle, I really try to connect these points together. I try to close the loop of the magic triangle. And by only doing this and being in the industry for so long, I think it is possible to find the right partners. It is also the right timing.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it would have been impossible. And it is funny, even half a year ago, just imagine, just half a year ago, talking to some of the suppliers, when I'm mentioning that I'm looking for sustainable materials, recycled yarns, they said like, there's a great idea, but no one is asking for you. You're the first. It's like, how on earth is this possible? How on earth is it possible that I'm the first asking you for recycled yarns? It just, you must be kidding, you know? But it's the truth. And well, I just see that it is absolutely possible. It will take some time, but it doesn't matter. Whatever I can change now, I'm changing now. Whatever type of money I'm putting in, and it is quite a huge investment, I'll make sure that I found the sweet spot between all the possible variables.
It's kind of interesting talking about the recycled plastics as well. It's not just using the materials, it's redesigning. You know, we spent a lot of time looking at the clips and the tube connectors and the bladder connectors yesterday. And to give you an idea, it's completely redesigning how they are used to use less material, which might seem, oh, you're only using a couple of millimeters less on each side. But when you scale that up over 100,000 units or something like that, not only is that a saving in material wastage, because that extra material is just wastage, so it's a sustainable footprint, but it just brings the weight of the product down as well, yes. Because all those little bits, they all add up. And in an industry where, you know, people are striving to use new materials to save weight and things like that, it kind of gives you an idea of the level of detail that Ralph's gone into, and he mentioned there, recycled yarns. It comes right down to the way that you're, using the yarns and the way that you're stitching. You showed me some of the machines that you've got that, no one else has, because they can use the least amount of yarn, but with the strongest stitching in the most accurate way. So it's, the level of detail, I don't think I'll ever really be able to get to convey it unless you're lucky enough to come and visit Ralph's facility. But it's amazing, how much thought has gone into every little aspect of it and what they're looking at. And then, when we come back to the sort of production facility and go around it, you've got the cutting tables, obviously, which, are designed to sort of minimise wastage.
Clearly.
And then moving on from there, you've got the CNC machines and everything else. But they've also got right at the back an area where they build a lot of their own machinery.
Oh, yeah.
So Ralf was coming up with ideas of how they want to do things, and currently there isn't the machinery to facilitate that. So you guys are actually developing it yourselves, aren't you?
Totally, 100%. I mean, this is also one of the core aspects about... Okay, maybe we have to mention that at the moment we run the Brainchild laboratory, and the laboratory is a 1,100 square meter production, like a laboratory facility. And it's not only that we are making or developing new techniques and manufacturing technologies, we are big enough with 1,000 square meter, and we are equipped with everything we need to make, let's say, potentially we can make 7,500 to 10,000 wings. So we are training or simulating, it's not training, it's a simulation of a bigger production. Because only then you can actually calculate also like if your efficiency is correct, if like how the material wastage looks like and so on. So the laboratory, which no one has ever done before, like 1,000 square meter laboratory, it's over 2 million euros investment and quite a lot of running cost, just to ensure that we are creating the chain, which is then scaled up for the manufacturing side, which is called Brainchild Manufacturing. And I showed you yesterday the plots over there.
Yeah.
We have in total, like right now, 11,000 square meter, applying for another 30,000, so 40,000 square meter in an industrial area, where we are going to build a 10,000 square meter, so 1 to 10 scale, a 10,000 square meter fully equipped solar panel facility to basically do the real side of manufacturing,
scaling everything
up, exactly, and then also having the possibilities to build the recycling plant next to it, to have the injection molding directly next to me, and also other industries, because I'm also talking, of course, because of the network, to other industries, to other fields which are extremely interesting, and having like this network, to have like this little, let's say, campus, as I always call it, the campus which allows several industries or individual persons, like industrial designers, to basically join our vision. This is what we are trying to do. Like, I think this is quite important to mention. It's not about only focusing on one specific area, because we have been developing core technologies which can be applied for other industries as well. What I need motivated, highly skilled people from wherever in the world, doesn't matter, which are willing to join us in that campus to create products of the future. This is pretty much what we try to do. And talking about the seams, we found the technologies where you don't need seams.
Yeah, this is incredible. It's going to be one of my next points to bring up. And Ralf has shown me some of the products that they've created, and you might have seen a few pictures of them. And in a month's time or so, when we publish the article and stuff, you definitely will have done. And not only do they look visually stunning, it's not about how they look and how they're designed and the materials that are used. It's the pro world, I think you've given it the moniker of, is bonkers. And Ralf gave me this leading edge, and he's like, oh, pick up this leading edge. What do you notice about it? And I was sort of looking at it, and I was like, well, there's only one seam on it. There's a leading edge closing seam, and that's it. And every other segment, and if you think about your wing or your kite, every segment to give it that arch is stitched and overlapped and sewn, and you get this ballooning effect. and you've created something completely different.
Yeah, well, we have the Pro Weld, which is literally the connection between the individual panels are welded together. I'm not saying how I do this because it took me only 13 years to figure it out. I made a patent in 2009.
Wow.
Yeah, so 45 pages, basically, and I described everything. I can show you the later because it's quite funny, because in 2009 I had the vision to basically have the stitched-free product for sails, paragliders, kites, but it just took me so long, 13 years, to actually really find the right materials, find the right machinery, and also having the time to put this effort also into it, because it just goes, if you want to create something like this, you need the resources for it, the money and everything. So it took a bit longer than expected, actually, but I think the result is quite impressive in many regards, because this technology, not only that you save weight, but the connection is much stronger in terms of structural stiffness.
Yeah.
So the last 3-4 years we have been working heavily at Duoton on creating new materials. The SLS products featuring the Penta TX, and we have the D-Lab featuring the Allure material. And there is so much potential in new materials that the combination of new manufacturing technologies and new materials is going to lead to different and new products.
Yeah.
So it's not that, it's like, sorry to say, it's not like windsurfing, sorry to say, I don't want to offend anyone, but in this regard, we are actually just opening up a new chapter within the industry for wings and kites. Like, I'm convinced that the look and feel will change forever, and that we also may be opening up new market fields, even by attracting more people being able to join the sport, because the products will be lighter, they will be on a different price point. And I'm not meaning that they will be more expensive, because it's not my intention to make the kites more expensive. I want to make the kites and the wings more accessible for everyone. Like, I want to create products people are able to enjoy. So it's a different approach. Like, that's kind of my part of my vision, what I have and how I see hopefully the market is going to develop. It is sustainable, but it's also at the very same time highly technology driven, because this is something which goes perfectly hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing when you look at it, and I think you were showing me one of the backpacks that you're making. When we talk about those, these are kind of either backpacks for people that want to put things in, or for kites and wings and that kind of a backpack. And the first thing Ralf said, what do you think of this, where the material changes colour? And I was just like, oh yeah, so you've printed one bit of colour there and another bit of colour there. And it was like, no, that's a seam. And you honestly can't feel where the seam is, because it's
not
welded
with the finger, which is quite crazy.
It's really quite mind-blowing. And Ralf touched on it a second there. It's not just the saving of the weight, because if you think of all the stitching that goes into a kite or a wing, that's a lot of material, and that weighs something.
A lot.
So
actually,
you've reduced that completely, but it's the stiffness of it, because you haven't punched a load of holes in that material to join it together, so it hasn't been, its integrity hasn't been compromised, which is a big factor. But it's almost just becomes like one piece of material, which then retains the stiffness properties of the original piece of material.
It actually 100%. Yeah, I mean, you put it perfectly together. It actually is kind of one piece in the end. Even it does have segments, and the leading edge closing seam is the only seam where we do purposely apply a seam, because if we would not do this, then it would be very difficult to do the repairs.
Yeah.
So it is, of course, it must be a kind of a logic and strategy for us to say, yes, we have a new product, but it still can be repaired once you're at the holidays and whatever, and you go to a repair shop. It's still, you can open up the leading edge and patch it. Like, this is a very big aspect of it. But ultimately, who knows to what everything is going to lead to? This is now the next level. And now we have to learn to to apply these techniques everywhere where we see potential. But this is definitely, it is the beginning and not the end. So I think it is a very, very positive, very motivation, or like there's a lot of motivation for me also to push these things further, because I don't see a limit.
Yeah. And that leading edge closing seam, even that is completely different to a normal leading edge closing seam. You know, and it looks, you look at one and you go, oh, that's been done by a professional. And you look at the other one and go, yeah, it doesn't look so tidy. So
yeah, it's, well, I rethought everything. Just like there's, as you mentioned, the machineries we are using, I mean, on one side they are very expensive, it's clear, and it's a kind of investment, and of course it's also a risk from my personal side to put like this kind of money on the table and hoping for a return of investment. But if you want to change the things like for real, like in every single aspect, then you have to do this, you know, like what Elon Musk is doing. Love him or hate him, but doesn't matter. I mean, he's one of the very few visionaries in the world which have changed things for real in a scale that is unbelievable for a single human being, and you have to take the risk, you know, like, and we are just using the best machineries available to create the best possible outcome, to set the standard, and also to see like where this is actually going to lead us. You know, as I said, like the machines we are using are quite expensive in comparison to normal machinery. It's like even a factor from 1 to 20, 1 to 25.
Yeah,
it's insane actually. But on the other side, if you don't have it, if you don't understand it, then you won't be able to join that movement. And it is always a very fascinating game of ping pong. You know, you have the technique, then you're changing the material, then you change the material, and then you say like, oh, I changed the technology. And so it's a fantastic upwards spiral in the end, where everything is possible. You know, like this it just opens up a completely new field. And as I said, not only for our wind-driven sport, but this kind of technology and this kind of synergies, which are then going to be explored in the future, will open up potential cooperations with other companies. And that's pretty much, as I said, like this is what I'm looking for with creating this kind of campus.
And talking about the machinery, it's not just, you know, super high tech, this place. I've not been in a facility. I've been in a few over the years. I've never been anywhere quite like it. But it's not just the machinery, it's the people who operate the machinery. And, you know, you've got a really good initiative locally to train people up with the vision of the Brainchild production facility needing, you know, I think you said 200 people just running the sewing machines, you know, so 200 people just doing the sewing machines. And what's your sort of vision with that?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it's a long story, but the thing is, I mean, I have been working many years in the industry, and when I started my career, I had no financial background, you know, like no support. And it was very difficult for me in the, let's say, the first 10 years of my career to achieve the things, because I was not treated fair. Let's put it this way, you know, like I'm not crying about it, absolutely not. I'm not the type of guy, but it was not fair, absolutely not. So what I try is to treat like my employees and everyone which is involved in the entire supply chain fair, with participation systems. My workers are really well paid. Like there's no other job in the country in that field of sewing where they get this type of money. And of course, you know, like I'm very demanding. So I'm selecting the people very carefully. We have opened a sewing school here in Bitola where we just training people, like they can have sewing lessons.
And that's for free, isn't it? Yeah,
for free. So, and even they don't want to join us, it doesn't matter. You know, like it doesn't matter. They have a 4 weeks course. They can come. They can start their own business by sewing whatever clothing or so. I don't care. I just want to ensure that I'm in the end able to find the right people, which do understand the level of quality I'm actually looking for. And I mean, we had so funny situations here. When I built the facility, the construction manager who did it, he was laughing at me. He was laughing at me. He always said that I'm the crazy German, and why I do this, why I do try to make the things look good. Why do I spend so much money on a heating system which is ecologically friendly? Why I do this? It's stupid. And now a year later he's coming and he's saying, now he's also putting the solar panels on the roof of his house. So, and you can see like how much you're able to influence the people if you're just like doing it, pushing it in a positive way. And and if they love about me, fair enough. As I see, half a year or a year later they don't do anymore. And I think this is very motivation. No, how you say that?
Yeah, motivating. Yeah,
motivating. Sorry,
that's all right. Your English is way better than my German.
Okay. Well, I do see that as a compliment. And this is like the people are very proud of what they're doing. They're very proud, and they can be really proud. And because it was difficult. Very difficult in the beginning. They all came from a different background. They came from like the normal garment industry, like making t-shirts, clothing, whatever. And there it's all about output. And of course, at the end, like we also have to be highly efficient, no question about it. But we do it with the best machinery, for example, because this is also a huge part of the efficiency in general when you look to all the variables within a production setup. So they are paid well, they are very motivated, and if you don't have this, you will not find the people which are capable of solving difficult problems. And if you want to invent, it's all about solving difficult problems. So I think I have a pretty good setup at the moment. I think I found really good partners within the supply chain. Astonishing, I have to say. Unbelievable. It would not be possible to have this in Asia. Absolutely not, because we are here in the heart of Europe. We have a European mindset. There's a lot of automotive going on, so there's a lot of high standard technology available, and it's just a great place to distribute also the products then once they are finished to the world. We have Thessaloniki 2.5 hours away, which is a port in Greece. You can ship it from there, but the mainland Europe, it's easy to reach with a truck, and hopefully ecologically friendly one, which is possible totally.
Yeah, in the future. Yeah. I mean, it's worth just touching on, what Ralf was talking about there. Having walked around the Brainchild laboratory, and he's saying about his construction manager saying, "Why are you building this?" I mean, one of the things that I was shown was the kitchen area for the staff, which isn't like a little staff kitchen at the back that's small and pokey with a fridge in it. It's this huge, it could be a really smart restaurant essentially. It's got gigantic bifold doors that open out onto a lovely garden with this incredible view, and it comes down to that thing of you can use the most sustainable products, you can be reduce your carbon footprint as much as possible, you can do all these things, but if you treat your workers like rubbish, then is that really sustainable? Because it's a people angle as well. You need to be looking after these people, and like Ralf says, he's paying them more than the going rate locally, and making sure they've got a nice working environment, and initiating training programs for them, which I think is a massive slice of the pie that often gets overlooked. And I think you'd say that's probably fair to say that is the case in a lot of production facilities. Workers aren't getting the best deal, and that's what's difficult. Not necessarily in the kite industry, but just in general, people don't treat their workers as they should. So it's nice to see someone really focused on the workforce.
It's a little bit of a question of who's operating and who's ruling a production facility. It's like a question of generations. I really do believe. And if you look to the production managers which are ruling the biggest production facilities in our field, they have all the exact same age. Funnily, and they all do the exact same things. So I'm a little bit younger.
Yeah.
Not really young anymore, but I have seen quite a lot of bad things, I have to say, and I know that that's not okay. Generally, absolutely not. Because as I mentioned, like everybody wants to be treated fair, and I think it's just part of the mission, and I do pay more money on one side, and it is my job to ensure that the cost of the product is not exploding, because if the product price, the retail price to my customers would be insanely high, then I would not be able to sell. I would not be competitive in that field. So I have to be, let's say, I don't want to say more clever, but I have to take more caution, more care about how to set up my infrastructure to reduce the labor time.
Yeah.
You know, like I have to reduce labor to ensure that the labor which I'm able to spend can be spent wisely. I mean, that's what I do, you know, like that's the reason why we are developing our own machineries. Literally everything on with 3D printers.
Yeah.
You know, like very complex machines, they're all 3D printed in our facility. And this is like kind of a mindset. Of course, first of all, you have to know the knowledge. You have to have it, you know, you have to find the right people which are capable to make an idea come true. But once, and I think I found the right setup, once you have it, then you are approaching problems in a completely different way. Completely. And I think I do exactly the opposite from all the other manufacturers in the world right now.
Yeah, it's impressive to see. And it's the level of detail. I mean, it just sort of another little piece. On one side of the factory, there's this really nice wooden wall, you know, which is like, it's a factory. It's normally a concrete wall with breeze blocks or whatever. There's a wooden wall, and then on it are just these huge, gigantic images which make the place feel, you know, quite welcoming and like quite a nice working environment. But even more than that, all the pictures are from Macedonia, and the idea is to make the workers proud of where they come from and
Absolutely.
To see what a beautiful country they live in. And so it's these little, you know, you talk about attention to detail, from shaving off a little piece of recycled plastic on something there to, you know, putting up pictures on the wall that can inspire your workers to be proud of where they live and everything else. It's a really kind of a whole production approach, which is really, really impressive. So to see it is amazing. And then the finished products, I mean, that's when we get to the end of the tour. The finished products are just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I would say they are quite different.
Yeah.
I think they're quite different. And the funny part is, if you're standing to like a product which is sold currently, and then you're standing up to the product of the future, you believe that the gap is 50 years.
Yeah.
I would say like, oh, whatever, like, let's say 20 years, more than that, because it is so it's a different look and feel. It's a different, as you said, like they are on one side they are reduced to what is necessary, like trying to be like really a smart design, but on the other side, due to the digital printing, just everything is possible, and it becomes art. It's not only, yesterday we had talk about Aston Martin, you know, and the Vantage from 2005 to 2015 or so, and it is, for me, they have not created a car, because there are so many cars. It has 4 wheels, an engine, and a steering wheel, sorry. But in the end, it is art. It is art. And this is something I always had in mind, to say, like, it's not only a car, but it's also art. Because then, once it's art, you can have artists creating art on one side, and you have designers, industrial engineers creating the product. So you basically start to combine different fields. And due to the fact that we are not limited to special editions, we can make one-offs, you know, like it doesn't matter. And the funny thing is, we had these 2 wings.
Yeah.
We cannot say which brand it is, but we have these 2 wings sitting next to each other. And it was the identical wing, but you could not tell them apart. Like they looked so different.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the optical exposure impression, that this is actually what it's all about, you know, like it is the ability to create a different image together with the back, which is matching.
I mean, it's the whole
package.
It's nuts when you look at the finished wings that Ralf's made. I mean, it's almost like they're from the future. You're sort of like, well, when can I get my hands on one of those? Because it just looks so much better. And he's got a little area where, you know, they've got the wings that they've made that are completed, and there's one of the sort of the most high-end wings you could buy, I guess, from another brand. And when you look at them, it's just chalk and cheese, you know. It's just completely like one you look at and you go, this is like the pinnacle of wings that are on the market right now. And you look at the products that Ralf's creating, and it's like, well, it's on a whole other ballpark, you know. It's another planet. It's just absolutely out of this world what's being done. And you know, it's not just that. He's saying, you know, you've got the bag that then matches the wing. So, you know, because you can digitally print it, because you're not limited to materials and whether you've got the right color swatches or anything, it's just, you know, everything's white. You can color it however you want. So you can then tie in that. And you can even have the board shorts that match your wing and match your bag, you know, if you so wish, and do all these limited runs. And you were saying, you know, we won't mention any names, but one of Ralf's biggest focuses at the moment is finding the partners that are going to come on board, because obviously he can only do so much, but in the future he needs to be filling his 40,000 square foot production facility with customers that are buying wings from him. And it's really interesting because, you know, if someone comes, and if you are from one of the brands, you listen to this and you're interested in what Ralf's doing, for sure get in touch with him. But he can make you a custom wing, like, I think you said it was a few hours or something it took to start. A day. So in one day they can make a branded wing. And I was looking at these wings going, wow, I really like the look of, you know, X brand's new wing. It looks super stylish. That's really cool. And they're like, no, we designed it in-house. We made it. And so when the brand manager came, he could see what the product could potentially look like. And I think that's a really unique aspect, which also comes on to, you know, in the future, we talked a little bit about it, but if you're wanting to prototype, you know, normally the prototyping process, the designer will design something in CAD, they send it off to the factory makes the prototype gets run off the production line when they've got time to make the prototypes, because often the production line's really busy and it's running and you have to wait for your prototyping moment. And then it gets shipped from Asia all the way back to Europe or wherever you're testing, and then you have to use it. Whereas here, you can literally, you know, make a prototype in a day and change things quite quickly, which potentially means that the sport can progress faster.
Oh yeah, it does, because there are like a couple of aspects to it. For example, normally what you do as a designer, you create the wing, and then a graphic designer jumps in once you're finished with the product. And then you throw the color and whatever the panel design, as we call it, on it. And we can do it in one shot. So it is both, you know, because it is, once it is a piece of art, then the art itself becomes as important as the product itself in certain ways, you know, like, because this is it's a USP. Absolutely. Like, let's have a look at the automotive industry. All these cars, Volkswagen, for example, they have multiple brands. They have Volkswagen, Skoda, Seat. It's always the same base. It's the identical base of the car, the identical engine, the identical everything. Just the chassis varies. So what we do is, like, we give the brands the opportunity to create not only the design, like the technical design, but also being able to progress much stronger when it comes to the optical appearance. And I can tell you this is going to change the industry massively, maybe even more than the technical aspects of it, because it is lifestyle, and you do want to have the cool wing. I want to have it. Yeah, and they do look you know, ridiculously good. Like, it is mind-blowing compared to, you know, when you're using different colour for panel layouts and the kind of graphics that you can screen print on in small areas. I mean, this is literally like the whole wing, and we'll have a little video that we're going to film later of some close-ups of how it looks. So if you're listening to this and going, oh, I want to see it, then for sure, you know, look out for the video that we'll be releasing and the article in the magazine. And then being in Europe's probably a big factor for sustainability, because you're not shipping materials and products. Like you were saying, most of the materials are sourced in Europe, and then, you know, the European market is the biggest, so your products aren't going to travel very far at all. Yeah, I mean, good example. For example, everything, all the inflatable products, they do contain a bladder. Yeah, because this is keeping the air and it creates the structure. So, and there well, there are multiple companies creating the bladder material, but the biggest brands in the industries, they are using bladder which is produced in Germany. And then they ship the bladder to Asia to manufacture it, let's say for 2 hours, and then they put it back and they ship it back to Europe. And that's quite crazy, actually. This is really crazy. So what we do is, like, we try to source all our main components from Europe. There will be still components coming from Asia because there are literally some parts not available. There's not the technology available in Europe, not yet. Maybe in 10 years, maybe a little area of the 40,000 square meter available area will be occupied by a material supplier, not only the recycled one but also high-tech materials. And yeah, canopy material coming from France. You know, like, and I think this is a huge achievement. And yes, it is more expensive, that's true. But in the end, we have to come up with clever ways of shipping. We are saving quite a lot of shipping costs. And I know that we will be still competitive for the package we are creating to our customers. And
because that's worth mentioning, isn't it? You know, we're talking about all these amazing things, and people are probably sitting there going, "Oh, what's it going to cost?" Especially in a year where the price of products has just gone ridiculous, you know, absolutely ridiculous. But what you're trying to do is where you might be using more expensive materials, you've reduced your labor time because you've automated certain areas, and you know, you've reduced your wastage because everything's white and you're doing digital printing. And so it kind of, you're saying, it comes out, it's not, you know, for the customer, the brand that wants to buy, you know, 20,000 wings or whatever, it's not a huge increase in price over what they're currently paying, right? For as products that, by all intents and purposes, is not eco-friendly and not good for the environment, that's manufactured miles away on the other side of the earth, that has to be shipped around and stuff like that. So that's quite an achievement. You must be quite proud of that.
Well, I will be proud of that if everything turns out the way I'm looking for. You know, like, it's a bit too early, because I mean, proud it's a hard work. I'm not really proud of this thing. I'm happy. You know, like, for example, if there are people on the beach and they are happy of kite surfing, you know, like, and they're coming from the water with a big smile on their face, then I'm happy that I made a good job, actually, because I'm something inside myself is forcing me to work quite hard. I would say I'm a very hard worker, as you said, involved in many different projects, and it's more than a passion. I have to do that. I don't know why, you know, I cannot stop it. And the vision is quite big, and I'm happy about the achievements we have done so far. Definitely, I see that we have made big steps. And maybe I will be proud in 10 years when I have been able to change the entire industry forever. Maybe it's possible. Let's see. Only time will tell. But it's definitely my goal to find the right amount of people, the right amount of partners which do share my vision, and that's definitely the hardest one. I mean, I found a private investor which is covering or would potentially cover pretty much the entire investment of the manufacturing side. But I want to have industrial partners coming from the industry, and we have to, like, I really would like to select the right ones, and I'm quite sure there are the right ones out there. But yeah, let's see. This is I'm luckily I'm in the position that I'm not stressed, because there is the financial backing from my end and also from the investor. But ultimately, I really do hope that I'm getting the right partners on board to make the difference.
And you mentioned your vision there. It's something that we sort of chatted about yesterday, and the whole approach to Brainchild is very different, because you have factories in Asia traditionally, and that's where they are, and they don't get talked about very much. You know, and it's not like the factory is promoting what they do, and we all know that some brands are made in the same factory. So while you might be buying brand X and you've got brand Y, they're, you know, essentially made right next door to each other, you know, by the same people. But obviously it's not really talked about, and your vision for Brainchild is kind of to market it and to actually promote it and to create a want among the people and the people that do these sports where they want a product that is created by Brainchild because they know it's going to be better and from the future and sustainably made, and we want people to buy into that. That's quite a unique vision, I think, to have.
Yeah, it is, as I said, like I try to do the exact opposite from everybody else. And look, you have to talk about sustainability. You have to showcase what you're doing, because the world is too complicated, too complex to actually believe someone. You know, if you believe that you're going to save the world because you're driving an electric car, Jesus, yeah, that's really bad, because the intention is there, that the people do have, some of the people really do have the intention to do the things better, but then purchasing a 2.8 ton electric vehicle, which could actually power an entire city just to get you from A to B, is not only ridiculous, it's crazy, and it's going to kill the world even faster by such a huge margin. And so we have to present our findings in a certain way. I have to talk about the things I'm doing, and I also want to prove that I'm able to actually make that change. And I have to promote myself in this regard, and we will heavily promote Brainchild as a manufacturing brand. Also to partner with our brands, with our partnering brands, to give them the support to prove that we're doing the things in a different way. It's about proving, and it's not about purchasing certificates. This all CO2 compensating, sorry to say, and excuse my French, shit which is going on. It's a criminal offense, actually. Yeah. It is criminal. And when you're looking to the industry which is into recycling, they say the worst thing what happened in the last 20 years is that someone came up with the CO2 compensation advertising campaign, or let's say idea, because this is the easiest way to cheat.
Yeah, and to not actually be sustainable. You just pay someone to plant a few trees. And I mean, you read the horror stories about that stuff as well. You know, are the trees being planted? Are they putting mangroves into wherever? No. You know, half the time they buy all the trees, they stick them in the ground, and they die because they don't look after them, or they put them in the wrong soil or whatever. So it is a real, it's such a, the whole greenwashing aspect is so bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad because, like how should someone out there, how should he know?
Yeah, they don't. How? You put your trust into the brands that you buy from, right?
Yes.
You're trusting that they've made all the decisions and are doing the best they possibly can for the environment, because they put a little green logo on it and say whatever. But the CO2 compensation thing.
It's a marketing campaign, and this campaign is highly successful, but it's actually killing the entire aspect of really diving into these complicated aspects and trying to change the things for real. And that's the reason why we say stop CO2 compensation, start saving for real. Because it is so much more complicated what we are doing, so much more than just purchasing something which has a green logo on it. And that's the reason why we have to promote ourselves. We will promote ourselves, and I really do hope that we are kind of a lighthouse idea, vision, and that hopefully other people will follow us to make the things, just starting to make the things a bit better.
Yeah. And one thing we haven't really touched on is the actual physical materials that you're using to make, the canopies and the leading edges and stuff like that. That's an area in the water sports industry that's really changing at the moment. It seems to be the real sort of step change with materials like Penta TX and Alula coming along and saving weight and things like that. And you're probably one of the best people to speak to in terms of knowing what's out there and what works. But what are you seeing coming from the future? Where are you seeing a wing's going to be made from X ply? Are they going to be made from Alula? Like what's the sort of future hold, do you think?
Well, we have different kind of futures. Like we definitely have a strong tendency that we are looking heavily into recycled materials. This is one aspect.
And that's the actual canopy with the Dacron, things like that. So those.
First of all, it will be the canopy, and I think this is already quite a nice achievement, really. To say that whatever, for example, 40%, 50% of the yarn is used from recycled sources. But as I said, like in the end, my vision is to do everything in-house, because technically it is possible, and only if I do it with my own hands, I can actually step up and say, like, I can prove that it has been done correctly and it really has been recycled from the bottle to the fabric. So this is really the vision. But I'm not saying that I'm not trusting our suppliers. I think our suppliers are really, really, really cool in this regard, and really also do see the need of change. So coming back to your question, is there's one side, it's the recycled side of it. Let's say to take the existing technologies and flight properties, so material properties and then flight properties, converting them into more sustainable products. This is one aspect. And then you have the second one, where it is absolutely undecided what type of materials we are going to have in the future, because this is highly depending on the welding technology, I would say, because the material weight itself is actually not the most important variable. It is the weight of the finished product. And that's basically where you have to put all the bits and pieces together. It's the sum of all its variables, and this is the reason why we're like reinventing every little bit and piece, just to ensure that the overall consumption of material, the overall weight, is reduced as to an absolutely minimum. And we have technologies where we can use, let's say, classical materials, but we are achieving weights which are 10% heavier than the lightest available products on the market, but on a totally different price point. So I think that's a huge revolution in the industry when you look to the technology we are able to apply. And I think even I'm kind of undecided in which direction it goes. If it's X-ply, if it's laminates, if it's woven fabrics. There are always pros and cons to everything, like really to everything. And also when you look at the price, I mean, of course, I'm in the very, very lucky position that we have been able to use the Lua material for duotone. I mean, the Juice D-Lab, for example, I do believe that this is the benchmark in light wind kites, and next year we will have another step in this regard. So it is very important to have this development, these huge steps going on. But I also know from the design work and development work we have done at Brainchild that we will find solutions to use cheaper material and being able to achieve the same output in terms of flight characteristics. And I think this is a massive step, because these products are very expensive. Because they are expensive, they are really extremely expensive. It's really complicated to manufacture. But my personal goal is to reduce the price, to allow more people to access to this kind of high-tech product.
Which is really important, especially at the moment when prices are so crazy.
Going through the roof,
and it's going to be an interesting year for the industry, I think, where, are people going to swallow those prices, or are they going to, instead of buying 3 kites, they're only going to buy 1 because the price has gone up so much. And it's one of those things, prices are going up for everything. So, raw materials, energy, everything's getting more expensive. So you can understand why the prices are having to go up. But I guess sadly the world's in a place where wages aren't doubling. So, that's the tricky thing. So it's
not yet.
Not yet. Hopefully at some point in the future. But it's good to see somebody that's keeping an eye on the price of the final product in mind, and recognizing that, it's not a blank checkbook as to what someone is going to pay. Sure, there will be people that want the latest Alula kite in the most fantastic material with the Porsche logo on it, or whatever it might be in the future, and they'll happily pay a huge premium for that. But you've still got to remember, we need to get people in at the bottom level of the sport.
The thing is that, I mean, we have to be extremely fair in this aspect. And as I said, I'm in the position to use these materials and to create, I would say, like the most performant products, let's put it this way. And I'm extremely glad extremely glad that Duotone in this particular regard does have the audience which are capable and able to purchase these very expensive products, because if we would not have this audience, I would not be able to progress further.
Yeah.
You know, like it's very important. It's like having like a special edition from a car manufacturer, which is very expensive, but features technology which then can be adapted
and trickle down.
Exactly, further down the line. So it is always like the market is always has a left and a right boundary, and then I'm trying to interpolate, you know, like I try to get the information from the left edge and from the right edge, and then I'm basically trying to find the sweet spot in between, which is pretty much what we're doing with the classic SLS and D-Lab. So that's a very smart way of dealing with different type of products and flight characteristics in general. So, but keeping an eye on the general aspect of making products commercially successful means that you have the best ratio between price and value. And this is what I'm trying to achieve. Like I'm very, very sensitive in these points. I'm not only a designer, as you know, like I own my own companies. I have been working in every single aspect of the supply chain. So I try to control all the bits and pieces as far as I can.
Yeah. And sort of bringing it back to Brainchild as a whole, there's not a lot of people that would have the vision to go, I'm going to set up a sustainable production facility and I'm going to do it in Europe, So a couple of questions in this one. Why North Macedonia? And what's been the hardest aspect of doing what you do? I mean, I know, I'm not going to assume, because I know you're not from North Macedonia. So it's like, how do you turn up in the country and say, I've got this vision, I want to do this, and how's it going to work? So yeah, why North Macedonia first, and
why Macedonia? The thing is that it all happened by accident. I was many years, 8 years back, as always, I have been in South Africa during the winter to develop products for Duotone. Back in these days for North Skateboarding.
Yeah.
And I was paragliding at the Signal Hill, like where all the tandem pilots are flying their passengers around over Cape Town. And I met a guy from North Macedonia, Martin. And he's right now a World Cup pilot. Like he's definitely the best pilot in the country and one of the best pilots in the world. And he told me that he's from North Macedonia, not North Macedonia, but from Macedonia. And I said, like, okay, Macedonia, so, okay, I've seen the world quite a few places. Back in these days, I have seen 36 countries until then, and I had literally absolutely no idea where North Macedonia is located. He told me it's between Greece and Bulgaria, and I have been in Bulgaria in my entire childhood. I learned paragliding in Bulgaria, and I told him in a kind of a funny sense, I said, like, okay, between Greek and Bulgaria is Bulgaria. But I do not trust you that there's another country. And yeah, I know that there's Albania on the other side and then there's Serbia. But no, sorry, you must be whatever, you're like making it up. So I Googled it, of course, and it was very funny. He's a really nice guy. And there's this little country. It's tiny, the population is only 2 million people. And when Yugoslavia split into many, many countries, as we all know, due to the Yugoslavian wars, Macedonia was just forgotten, literally, totally forgotten. They have no access to the sea. They have one of the nicest nature in Europe, no question. It's stunning, really, really, really. It's amazing. Like everyone should travel to Macedonia, really, because it's insane. And he invited me to come over here for some paragliding, and I have to say I fall in love with that country. It is so beautiful. And 8 years ago, you had literally no modern cars driving around. You had the donkeys, like pulling the little wagons.
Yeah. And that's quite unique because it's in Europe. essentially,
yes, it was so far back in history. It was, I said, I'm traveling back in time for 25 to 30 years. It was ridiculous, insane, but the people are different, a little bit different, very, very different mentality than the other, like the normal Balkan mentality. It's a bit hard to get used to it, but once you're making friends, they are like the best friends you can potentially looking for. Like they have their heart on the right place, and they're really, really, really good friends. So fantastic, actually, different, really, really different to everything you can experience in Western Europe. So I was always saying, man, this country deserves to be promoted.
Yeah.
And the paragliding promoted Macedonia in big times. Like I'm working for Icaro Paragliders, this paragliding brand, and we did our entire marketing campaigns here in North Macedonia, and we did this rebrand of the company, and I think we made quite a huge impact also in the visual, let's say, presentation of the brand on one side, but also featuring Macedonia on the other side. And then these days, Macedonia is well known for competition. So World Cups, European Championships, and so on. So there are fantastic opportunities for flying over here. So right now, the country is changing quite a lot, which is very, very positive. It is in the heart of Europe. It is between Greece and Albania, Bulgaria, Serbia, and the Kosovo on one side. So it has huge potential. Why Macedonia? I had the chance to talk to some of the political members of the government, for example, to the Minister of Environment, and I was really not expecting anything, because we know the German or maybe British politicians, which are
not very good.
Idiots, exactly, like to point it out in a precise way. And these people are coming from completely different backgrounds, like from a working environment. They have been successful by being clever and smart and doing good things in the past, and not being only politicians, and the support you're getting, like even if it's sometimes just like the mental support, by saying, yeah, great what you're trying to achieve, really, or whatever, if you're facing a problem, I'll try to help you. It's not that they always can help you, because it's not a corrupt country, like there's no shortcut in here, definitely not. Things are sometimes really complicated, but it is still the way they try to fix it. They try to help and not try to stop you. So I think it's the best place I've ever experienced so far in my career, and visiting so many different countries in my life. I could not imagine any better place than North Macedonia.
Yeah,
and for a project like this.
And it seems like it's on the cusp of something, isn't it? Because they've got this huge road development that's going in. I mean, I drove down in a taxi yesterday, which was a very entertaining drive, and I mean, it was beautiful scenery. But yeah, great taxi driver, and yeah, they're building this gigantic road, and literally they're not sort of going around the mountains, they're just going straight through the middle, like the straightest bit is just concrete and rebar everywhere. And there's a train station that's been built, right next to where your production facility is going to be. So it
mega.
Feels like the country as a whole, even though a lot of people might not have heard of it, they're kind of teeing themselves up for this big development in manufacturing, which could be at a very choice time, because with shipping costs going through the roof, then it makes no sense suddenly to be manufacturing in Asia. So it could be a real boost for the country.
The country will explode and will change its face in the next 3 to 5 years completely, once again, actually. And it's positive, it's positive, and there's a lot of potential, as long as you have the motivation, and that's all about, like there's no depression. Like we're seeing, especially in Germany, it's just the end of it, like who's going to start a new company in Germany? Who's stupid enough to do so? Like you will not find the people, because it's the end of the line, really. So every society has its up and its downs, and I think it's just a very motivating time being here and trying to be a part of it, like of a positive influence. And yeah, only time will tell, I'm not able to predict the future, even if I try to. But in the end I'm not able to do so. And let's see. This is, I think, once you're here and once you also see the beauty of the nature and the will of the people to change, it's a fantastic combination.
Yeah,
I would say.
And at the moment we've got Brainchild Laboratory, which is up and running, and that's capable of producing
10,000 wings.
10,000 wings, which is a huge number.
It's actually not, but
it's not it's not super huge.
Number.
But but when you look at it, but in a year's time, you're hoping, or you're planning. Not hoping. Planning is the word to use with Ralf. He doesn't hope for anything. He just gets out there and does it.
Exactly.
But you're planning to have the 40,000 square foot.
It's 10,000.
10,000. Sorry, but the total.
It's 40.
Yeah, the total sort of floor space that you'll have eventually is going to be 40.
Yeah.
But the next facility that's going to be producing how many wings, do you think?
It's like the capacity is 100,000 wings.
100,000 wings.
Yeah,
and will that make it one of the biggest production facilities out there?
No, not really, because if for example GSL, Global Sports Lanka, would produce only wings, they could kind of achieve the same. That they could. No, they would. They basically would achieve the same amount. Yeah. So it's not the biggest, but the thing is, like, that's the reason, like, of course you have to apply for these areas, and it's an entire procedure. It's an industrial area. North Macedonia is not part of the European Union, so you have to pay import taxes for the raw material, which is a no-go, impossible. So you have to get free trade agreements, which all the companies have. Yeah, of course, automotive. Automotive is always paying nothing for anything, actually, funnily enough. And so we achieved basically to secure the first plot, which is 11,000 square meter. That's approved, and the approval for importing tax-free has been also approved from the government. So we are now in the progress of drawing the outline of the manufacturing plant itself. And the good thing is that there are so many production facilities popping up at the moment that there's a very good infrastructure for building this type of facilities, let's say it. I think the most difficult part will be to get the 10,000 square meter of solar panels equipped to the roof, and then the buffering of the energy, which is a massive problem. Because it's not easy. Like the electricity is not coming from the plug. Actually, I don't know if you know that. Like the people doesn't understand where the electricity is coming from. It is really difficult to deal with electricities and the peaks in the electricity in general. So that's going to be a huge achievement. But also we are working with German companies, which are specialized just for running production facilities on, let's say, sustainable sources. So it's going to be everything we do is going to be a single project, because we want to do the best thing in every single regard. But I'm quite sure by the end of next year we will have the whole ready, and also the machinery, which is not a big thing. If we order them now, it will take maybe 6 to 9 months, but end of the year we will have it equipped. And that's basically what we do. We have the capacity of 10,000 wings. We can basically supply small amounts to our customers to basically introduce the product to the market, and then from 2024 onwards we are actually able to scale it up. We're starting to scale it up. This is how it will work, and this is a realistic figure.
And that's an interesting thing to sort of touch on there, is that it is a scaling up process, right? Everything that you're doing at Brainchild Laboratory is working out the best way to make something as efficiently as possible, as well as possible, using the most advanced materials, so that then when Brainchild Production starts up, you can literally just go, right, turn the solar power on, energy comes in, production starts rolling, and wings start rolling off the line.
Sounds ridiculous easy.
I've made it sound really easy there.
But Ru, this is it, and this also varies from every other approach in the industry, because manufacturing site is so packed with orders these days, like everyone, especially in the Corona time, when first you had no chance to go to the water, but then the beaches have been opening, and there was such a gigantic run to access to the products that all the manufacturing plants have been freaking out, actually, because they had literally no capacities anymore. And you can also see by reducing quality, for example, I can see it, that definitely.
Yeah.
This
because
one
they're trying to have to ramp up, and the only way they can do it is by
just
skipping stages. Because,
exactly.
They're already at full production.
Absolutely. And then there's they try to squeeze in. They squeezed in, and then well, we have side effects on it. But anyhow, the point is really that you have to separate the laboratory from the manufacturing side. Manufacturing is really like an orchestra.
Yeah.
And you're playing kind of the same music every day. It's the same rhythm. Like when you enter a production facility and everything sounds good, and that's not a joke. If it sounds good, then it's efficient. Within the laboratory, it's like screaming noises all over the place, and that pretty much tells you already that we are trying to figure it out how to do it best, and we always have to do at least 100 pieces for whatever to come up with the right calculation figures, to estimate, to validate what we're actually going to have on the bigger side, on the 1 to 10 on the manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
But that's the way it's a strategy.
Yeah.
It's a different strategy.
Yeah, and it's quite unique, right? No one else is doing that kind of stuff. Everyone just builds a production facility and
then see how it goes.
See how it goes, and away they go. We've been chatting for a little while there, and I know your time is very, very limited because you're such a busy man. But is there anything that I've missed, or do you think I've covered everything off? Is there anything that you sort of think?
Like, first of all, I'm really, really happy that we have this type of interviews, and it's great actually to be in the position to talk about the things I had in mind for so many years, and it's really, really great. And I personally do hope that we have the chance of influence.
Yeah.
And I really do hope that maybe also the one or the other listener to that podcast is going to be attracted by what I have in mind, and we're really looking for people sharing the same vision. It doesn't matter if it's from the industrial engineer or through other companies running the same like product, or other companies, or like investors or entrepreneurs which are saying like, wow, that's a great idea, because in the end it must be a network.
Yeah.
It must be, and everything must be related on participation. Everyone has to participate from the goals others are setting within, like, let's say, this group within this campus. And I think we captured it all.
Yeah.
Sort of. I think in the end, the people hopefully will have the chance to try out the products in the future.
I mean, from my perspective, I can't sort of reiterate enough how impressive this trip has been. I didn't know what to expect, so Ralf just sent me an email and said, I'm building this sustainable production facility, which piqued my interest because I'm very keen on sustainability. And then I think from there we sort of had a quick chat in Sicily when we were there, and you were like, well, just book some flights, I'll sort the hotel. So I was like, I booked the flights, and actually before I flew I was like, I think it's the 3rd of November next week. I think I'm going to I'm like, I'm not forgotten. I knew it was there, but October just went so quickly in a blur. And I was like, I really need to sort out, like, right, I've got to get my camera gear ready and get the podcast gear ready and go, right, I've got to go to Macedonia and do this trip. But I didn't know what to expect. And when I was driving in the taxi, I was looking out at the scenery, just going, wow, this is, absolutely beautiful, stunning. Obviously meeting you here and having a bit of lunch, and then when we went to this facility, like, it is mind-blowing, the things that you're doing. Like, honestly, I'm not saying that, but to look at every little aspect and to be so into every little detail, it is just absolutely mind-boggling that you can go into that much, but at the same time creating such an incredible looking product, and for it to be sustainable. Any one of those things would be impressive, but to do all three of them, to have such tiny attention to every little detail, but then to have a finished product which looks better than anything else I've ever seen, literally anything else I've ever seen, and to put it next to, one of the top products of the moment, and this is what the future holds. And then with the sustainability side of it and looking after the staff, I think it's, incredibly impressive, Ralf. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds.
Yeah,
and,
thank you very much.
I can't wait to get my hands on one.
Well, we can make that happen for sure. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure when the time comes to do some testing, we can.
We will, and you will definitely.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you, Ralf.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very
brilliant.
much. Yeah.
There we have it. Another episode in the bank. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies if I came across somewhat gushing about what's going on over in North Macedonia. I've been in the water sports industry now since I was, if you want to count I've been in the water sports industry for a long time, and it takes quite a lot to really impress me. New equipment comes and goes. We go to these launches all the time, and you're like, yeah, okay, you've done this to it, you've done that to it. It's always better, it's always faster, but there's never really any huge step changes. We had things like the bow kites in 2006, which were obviously quite groundbreaking at the time. We've seen some big moves forwards in terms of safety and things like that over the years, and different ways in which we connect ourselves to the kite, and obviously some big leaps in bar performance. And at the moment we're seeing a lot of technological improvements in terms of the materials. But to go to North Macedonia and see what Brainchild were up to was truly mind-blowing. And I am exceedingly critical of things. I'll call something out if I don't think it's good. So, if I came across thinking that was awesome, it's because I genuinely went there and thought it was awesome. And what I genuinely hope is that Brainchild really takes off, and, Ralph's dream of people wanting to choose a kite from a brand because it's been manufactured in a sustainable way comes to bear, because if it does, then that changes the industry for the better. And those of you who've listened to my podcast about sunglasses, and one of my other businesses, Faceplant, which is a sustainable sunglasses company, will know that sustainability is a big key to everything that we do these days. And so to see an industry that is inherently unsustainable really start to embrace sustainability would be an amazing step forward, I think. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and it won't be so long before the next episode comes out. I know exactly who I'm going to be interviewing. He's moved very close to me in Wales. Currently he's in a jungle, so that's a little clue as to who it will be. But as soon as he gets back, I'm going to sit him down. We're going to have a chat. As I mentioned right at the beginning, give the boys at the Generic Foiling Pod a listen. That is well worth your attention and really, really good. I'm going to be releasing these a little bit more regularly, but not on a weekly basis, just because I'm so busy with everything else. We're doing a lot more video content with the magazines. Obviously, the sunglasses is quite busy, although it's winter time, so it's a bit down at the moment in terms of the amount of hours I have to input into it. But yeah, there's a lot going on, so I'm not going to commit to busting out an episode once a week, but I am going to be recording these in the background. As soon as I get a good one in the bank, I will put it up here. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. Remember, as always, to give it a like and a share. Tell people about it on social media, spread the word. The more people that listen to these, the better, and the more inspired we are to keep making them. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic week. You've been listening to me, Brainchild, and the Intriguing Beings podcast.